We are very, very communicative in our family. And, my kids went through the Betty Ford Children's Program. They go to Alateen. My husband is an Al-Anon black belt, which, can sometimes be like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. But, it's harsh sometimes.
Karie, I am so excited to have you in studio. We go way back, and I'm really excited to dive into that a bit. And I just feel, it's an interesting, this to me is interesting, right? We always check in and see how people are doing. And I love hearing like, hey, I've gotten, 1 month, I've gotten 6 months, I've gotten a year. I'll get a text message. I have 8 years because of BFR, and it's always just like, wow, that's crazy that, I've been around. Yesterday actually was just our celebration of 9 years that we have been in business. And that was just, totally taking a leap of faith that BFR would be what it is today. And to see the journey of so many individuals has been the greatest blessing, and my favorite is making friendships with our past clients and being there and holding their hand and guiding them and being just of support, But to have you here today for me is extremely special. I've watched you grow. I'm blessed to call you a good friend, my designer, my dresser.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yes. How was the traffic? Not too bad?
It was fine when I left, and then all of a sudden they were routing me in a different way. And I've come out here so many times. And so I thought, why are they sending me down 87? And, it was fine though. Just a few minutes delay. There must have been an accident or something. It was showing red down around downtown. But,
yes,
a little over an hour.
And you're in Northern California, but you're from Southern.
I am from Southern California. Oh. I'm from Michigan originally, but I lived in Southern California for 15 years.
Wow.
Prior to coming up here.
Yeah.
And we lived up here before, though. We lived in San Jose when we first got married.
Got it. And then you moved to okay.
Yeah, so we've kind of been back and forth and come full circle.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Big time.
So I'm curious because technically I would say a lot of people would consider you close for treatment. So you're in recovery. Mm-hmm. And alcohol. Mm-hmm. Has it always been alcohol?
No, I've done, I've tried many forms of alcohol. I would say that I never did needle drugs, but I did just about everything else and pretty heavily.
Yeah. Did you ever go to treatment for other substances?
Yes. I went to Betty Ford once for benzodiazepines and alcohol. And I was unaware of how dangerous it was to try to come off of those two things alone, and I tried to do that myself. And I was seeing a therapist, and he was putting me on these antidepressants and benzodiazepines, which I had no idea. I had no idea. And of course, I wasn't being honest with him of my alcohol consumption, so he didn't know either. And when I tried to quit on my own, there were some health implications, and I never ended up in the hospital, but I could just tell my body wasn't going to take it well. So that was my first.
Were you having shakes?
Oh yeah. And my heart would palpitate and I would say like, I really need to drink, I need to have another drink. I didn't realize that the two combined was a deadly combination when you're withdrawing. I mean, alcohol is dangerous enough.
Yeah. Alcohol, what I explain to people is, so alcohol and benzos, you take somebody who comes in, never tried any substances, just alcohol, but severely dependent. And then you take somebody who's never had a sip of alcohol and dependent on benzos, the withdrawal symptoms are exactly the same. And it causes, the blood pressure to rise, and what causes the shakes in your heart to feel that way, which could lead to a seizure. Yeah. So you combine the two, which is always very interesting when doctors will say, okay, you're struggling with alcohol, but we're going to put you on benzos, but then you go to get off of the two and you're another withdrawal. It's a very scary combination because now it's intensified. Did you ever have a seizure?
No.
Thank God.
No, remarkably enough, my health is very good. I'm very lucky. I know I had an enlarged liver, but it's healed now. And there doesn't seem to be any long-term damage, but I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I drank for 30 years.
Well, and that's what's scary. I feel like it's so socially acceptable, right? And so many people ask me the question of like, how do I know if I'm an alcoholic? And it just, to me, it's like if it's causing any negative consequences in your life, whether it's relationships, your health, job, all of those things. And there's a lot of justification around it, big time, because it's so socially acceptable. Or it's, I'm just drinking, I'm not using drugs. Or, well, it's just wine. That's the biggest one. It's just wine, and it's only in the evenings, and it's like 1-2 bottles of wine, which is crazy.
Right.
Did you feel like you were in a lot of denial at the beginning, or were you pretty aware?
I was definitely the person that said, if I want to quit, I'll quit. I just don't want to. And when the time came that I really could not deny that I needed to do something, it was really hard, and I have to say, though, that I didn't know what was wrong with me. I came from no experience with Alcoholics Anonymous or alcoholics, although I had alcoholics in my family. No one was in recovery. So the consequences that I was feeling were not something that I was saying, oh, I must be an alcoholic.
Right.
For many years, I just would say, like, I'm not going to drink at 4:00 today when I get out of work.
Right.
Not, driving to work with a hangover and saying, I'm not going to do it again today. I'm not going to do it again today.
Right.
And knowing that there was something fundamentally wrong, but not knowing what. And that went on for years. When I finally kind of put the 2 and 2 together with the help of, a therapist and some friends, and consequences, of course, which were, if I look back on it now, there were so many things that told me early in my life that I shouldn't drink. I should have got sober in my 20s.
Yeah.
When things were,
back.
Oh yeah. There were just so many signs, but I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was circumstantial. I grew up in a family that, you blamed other people, you made excuses. There was no accountability, and I shouldn't say that there was no accountability with my mother or father, but there wasn't a general sense of accountability, like for myself. I was very much just willing to say, like, oh, it was just because of this, or it was just because of this. And I was a runner. So, when I moved to Malibu and started my family, and I was taken away from other forms of alcohol, I thought, I could quit that. So if I want to quit drinking, I can. But when I really tried, it was really hard.
Right.
It was impossible for me to not pick that drink up in the afternoon.
What do you feel was your reasoning for needing it in the afternoon? What was that satisfaction at that moment? Like, what was it more, you just, it was routine. So that's what you needed. Were you feeling you needed to numb the entire day? Was it fun?
It was, it was for every single reason. If it was a good day or a bad day, there was just a pull, an obsession that would start midday as soon as I started feeling better, that I could not stop thinking about the comfort and ease that I was going to feel as soon as that drink went down my throat.
Right.
There was just a warmth and just that sense of comfort and ease, and I didn't have to worry about things because I've learned that I am just somebody that will worry about things that haven't happened. I spend way too much time in the future and the past. I wasn't able to be present. I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
To stay in the moment. I didn't even understand how important that was to be a happy person. I was just constantly thinking about what might go wrong, what if, or things that I had done in the past. And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of behaviors that would happen when I would drink that I just didn't want to think about.
Right.
So it was a coping skill. It was the only one I had, simply the only one I had. But it was an obsession, for sure, just to get that first drink.
Right. And when you first went to treatment, how did that transpire? Like, what was...
I had been in therapy trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And honestly, I wanted anything to be wrong with me but an alcoholic. Like, you could have told me I had cancer. I would have been, I think, at the time, okay with that, because I didn't want to give up that friend. I didn't want to lose that friend, that coping skill, that thing that made everything okay.
Right.
And I think it was 2008. I went to my first AA meeting and I sat in the back and I cried And I thought, I can't. This is what it's come to. I don't think I can do this, And that year, after I kind of figured out what my problem was the worst year I ever had. I can't say that to be true. Like up to that point, it was the worst I'd ever had. And so in January of 2009, I woke up one morning and I had been drinking around the clock, and my husband didn't even know. Wow. And I said, I'm going to go to Betty Ford. And he said, okay. He knew I needed to do something. And he said, why now? And I said, because I can't draw a sober breath. And so I went to Betty Ford, and, I stayed sober for, I think, 6 months after that.
Wow. How long did you stay in treatment for that first time?
That first time I was in for 30 days, and then I went to residential.
Okay.
With them on, Daisy Lane, I think they call it. And it's changed a lot. I've been to Betty Ford 3 times, and it was a full, private pay organization at first. And then the last time I went, it was insurance. It was a much different program, but it was a beautiful program, and I met some beautiful people I still talk to today. And it was a great experience. It was the beginning of my journey.
Right.
By the time I ended up coming to your facilities, I realized that I didn't need to go to treatment. I needed to do my program.
Right.
I just needed a separation from my bottle, that I couldn't get at home. I couldn't do it long enough to really get my feet under me again. So I needed to be separated from it. And I was very sick when I would take a drink, because for me, it progressed, and I had to take it to the very end, to the point where when I pick up a drink, I was right back to drinking 24/7. That happened immediately the last 2 times I drank.
Right.
And just a horrible, horrible situation.
Did you ever feel comfort in treatment? With going numerous times? Because Betty Ford and then our facility, they're comfortable.
They are comfortable.
They're safe. You have food provided, 3 meals a day. Some have massage therapy and these outings, and you get to just kind of unplug. And I feel like there's a level of comfort for some people of, okay, if I slip up, I could go back. Was that the case for you, or no?
I never thought about it that way, but when it was time to go, I was relieved, because, and that's what I realized, when I was coming to your facility, it was the lesser of the take a vacation. Even though it was so comfortable, I knew that I was going there to detox. And
that in itself is uncomfortable.
That is uncomfortable and necessary, but it wasn't like, there were times when I was, and I hate to say it, but raising 2 small children, I didn't understand what that was going to be like. I stayed home with my children after my daughter was born, and that was kind of the plan, but she was born premature, and so I kind of had to. And I had help. I had a housekeeper. I had, a nanny. I had all this time. I kind of had what was keeping me together, which was my job and getting up every morning, was taken away. And so the wheels fell off real quick.
Right.
And it was overwhelming. I kind of lost myself in the babies as much as I ultimately got sober for them. I'm sober for myself today.
Yeah.
But ultimately it was for them. I love them dearly. They're my pride and joy.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to kind of lose myself as a stay-at-home mom. And, it was, I think that it was nice to go to treatment, because it was a vacation to me.
Now, when you would have time under your belt.
Not a vacation.
Yeah.
It's very sick.
Yeah. But, it's, you're going to get that relief of, okay, this is what I need. I need to enter a safe place to stop this vicious cycle that's happening at home that you can't do on your own. So in a sense, it is you time. And, the second you enter those doors, the drinking stops immediately.
Yes.
You enter another level of discomfort with, the withdrawals, but that's temporary. And then you start feeling good again. Now, when you had time under your belt and you had relapses, would you contemplate that for a while? Would you think about a relapse for days on end prior to it happening? Or was it an instant, I feel like drinking, before you know it, you're already drinking?
No, that's a great question, because I've talked about this a lot in my sobriety, because with relapse being such a big part of my story, people asked me all the time when I would come back and raise my hand, well, what's different this time? And I feel like I did not have that romance with the next drink. It was something that would come on so quick and so strong. I would steer my car off the road or run across the street to get alcohol.
Right.
It was something, and I've pinpointed it to certain traumas that trigger me in a way that I just couldn't cope with those feelings. And now I know, okay, they're just feelings. They're not going to kill me. It will pass. I don't react in that way. I have other coping skills, but I didn't have that, preconceived notion of planning my next drink and thinking about it, or thinking about, if I played the tape forward, I could probably, call somebody. But that's not the way it happened for me. I wasn't, and when I put the drink down, my obsession was gone. I didn't deal with that either. I wasn't thinking about drinking every day. I was lucky enough that that was taken away as soon as I stopped drinking.
Yeah. How do you feel it has interfered with your marriage, your children, as far as trust goes?
Oh, I mean, you know firsthand the troubles that it has brought upon my marriage, just with on so many different levels. We're building that back now, but for years, I mean, I have to say, I didn't even understand what it was like to really trust another human being myself. But I wasn't trustworthy, and I didn't see that as a problem, because I had grown up hiding and having so many secrets, and I mean, I love my parents both. They loved me, but I didn't learn how to make mistakes. I really felt like I had to be perfect. And if I wasn't perfect, then I was going to lie about it, so that's kind of, that was the hardest thing to shed in my adult life, was not to lie about everything, just the stupidest things, and that's been my biggest journey. And with my husband, there's just been, he's been, I can't believe we're still together. It's 27 years and we've been through everything. And I just watched something with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, and they were talking about, why are you together? What's the secret? I think is what they were talking about. And
the famous question, right?
Yeah, there's no secret.
Yeah.
We want to be together, and I think ultimately through everything that we've been through, we want to be together, and it's been a lot. And I think there gets to be a point where when there is so much and you've figured out how to get through it, there's a bond between you that you can't break. It's just family. I don't want my family broken up. Right. And I did everything I could to try to break it up. Yeah. Because I feel like I don't know whether I was trying to punish myself or whether I didn't feel worthy, but the actions, I look back at it now and I can't even imagine being that person. Right.
Well, and he's always been so supportive.
Yeah.
Those quick text message of, hey, she needs help. And it was, we deal with so many different dynamics when it comes to somebody getting help. You got enabling codependency and ones who have that, those boundaries set, and it's get help or I'm out. And he was always pretty stern with, you need help, but I'm here. Yeah. It wasn't get her help, I'm stepping away. And
the last time was.
That
was it. And I don't know whether that was, I think he just had enough of it. And
so many consequences, so many times going through the process. What more was he going to set? What more was he going to be able to say other than I have to step away? How many times do you keep going through the process without finally having that conversation with yourself of when's enough for me? And he was getting to that point, but he was always very supportive through all those years and through the journey, you know?
He was. I mean, we have had horrific things happen between us on both sides. And I think this last relapse where and I've talked about this before too, because I think that this is, even though I have ultimately just disrespected our marriage and disrespected myself, disrespected, all the people that have tried to help me. I didn't really know any better, and I'm not making excuses. It just is the way it is. That was my journey. It wasn't my bottom. Mm-hmm. The bottom came when all of these things came together. We'd had horrible fights. The kids were involved. I put my hands on my son. That is the ultimate bottom for me, is I put my hands on my son. I was hallucinating in right before I came to see you the last time, and, pulled him by the hair down the hallway. And to even think about it now, it just crushes me, because I finally got to see what my alcoholism looked like.
Right.
Like it wasn't just affecting me. And it took something so drastic for me to look back at it now. And now I'm just I have a living amends to my entire family. Whatever they want. My kids want a quesadilla at midnight, I'm up. They need to go somewhere, I'm doing it. My husband needs something, I'm doing it. I'm in. I'm all in. And I know that I have, if I get to spend the next 20 years doing a living amends, it's still not enough. But I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful. And I never thought I would be the person in AA saying I'm grateful, because I was the person in the back crying. This can't be. This can't be. This can't be. And it has been such a long journey, probably because I was so self-sufficient for so long that I honestly I couldn't turn it over. I couldn't accept it. I just couldn't accept it.
Right. And I feel like that definitely is the hardest part, is the acceptance piece of it. Yeah. And you deep down inside are miserable. If I look back on my journey, it's like you're not happy. You're just so dependent. You don't know any different at that point. Like that is your routine. That's part of you. And it's very uncomfortable without it too. And I used to look at people and be like, what are they on? What are they on? What are they on? They have to be on something. That one's on cocaine. That one's on wine. That one's, on opiates. Because I would say there's no way that they're that happy just sober off life. There's no way, and I needed it to enjoy a movie, enjoy food, started tasting, differently. And now it's like there's just so much gratitude around how it feels to be able to wake up with the freedom of choice of what you're going to do that day.
Just the ability to get in your car.
Right. And not thinking about 5 o'clock. You're
planning your day.
Exactly.
What are you going to be able to drop so you can start earlier? I mean, I thought, and I know this is a very common thing, but for me, it's so real, that I would be taking all the fun and my freedom away for some reason.
Right.
And I've never felt more free.
Right.
I never even understood my potential for life. I always knew I was falling short, and I had a lot of shame and guilt about that, but I didn't really know how to fix it, because the only thing I cared about was how I was going to manage my day.
Right.
And I was doing just what had to get done. I don't know how I managed to get as much done as I did when I look back, but, it would have been nice if I could have stayed sober when I first went to Betty Ford. But that's probably my biggest regret for my children, is the damage that was done between the time I found out I was an alcoholic.
Right.
And I actually accepted that I was an alcoholic was 11 years. That's a long, long, long time to suffer like I did.
Suffer.
And to bring everybody else with me, the hostages we take. And it's very interesting. But
have you ever, now that your kids are a little bit older, have you ever just talked with them about it? Or is it one of those things where you've just moved on, or have you ever?
Oh, no. We are very, very communicative in our family. And, my kids went through the Betty Ford Children's Program. They go to Alateen. My husband is an Al-Anon black belt, which, can sometimes be like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. But, it's harsh sometimes, because even today,
they're so strong in their Al-Anon that it's like, now they know everything about how this is all supposed to work too. Sometimes,
yeah. I mean, we both think we know, but we're not codependent anymore.
Right.
Honestly, probably one of the best gifts that I got from Betty Ford the last time I went was that I came out not depending on him for my happiness. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what that shift was about. I don't know why then I was not looking to him, but I started to believe that something bigger existed and that I was going to be able to rely on that and not on other people.
Right.
And that was a shift. It wasn't the full thing because I still hadn't accepted I was an alcoholic, but I was starting to feel like, I can't expect him to be everything. Mm-hmm. That's too much to ask.
Right.
Of anybody. Mm-hmm. And I have to understand that the world isn't perfect. Mm-hmm. Even though I thought I was expected to be perfect, and I know I can't be, I can't expect anything else to be perfect either. So that was the beginning of a shift. Still took a couple years after that, but it was definitely something that was, codependency.
It's like a whole other monster in itself.
It is. It's terrible.
It is. Well, and there's a lot, and it doesn't seem like this is your situation, but with a lot of marriages, relationships, is because some people, especially with codependency, some are sick in their own ways. It may not be on substance dependent, but where they almost want their significant other or child, I've seen it both ways, to remain sick for their own. It's something for them to continue to have to take care of or for them to nurture, and they need them. And then there's a fear that if they get better, they no longer need them. Was that ever?
I'm sure it was. I mean, I don't know. Steve might say different, but, he had a very sick mom growing up, and he was the youngest, and his older siblings were 10 years older than him, 10 and 11 years older.
Oh, wow.
And so he kind of grew up as an only child, and his mom was very sick and in the hospital all the time. And we've talked about this. I mean, I don't think he obviously isn't going to say he wants me sick.
Right.
But I think that there was some subconscious feeling of I will take care of you. But then when he couldn't take care of me, it was upsetting. And when I would get sobriety under my belt, the dynamic in our house would drastically change, and I would be super mom and, going to change everything and, everything's going to be great. And it upset the whole dynamic. And it's definitely been an adjustment that we've need to, I don't think that many couples survive it.
Right.
Because it's very different. I mean, we were drunk when we met,
yeah.
And we partied together. We were party partners. I think that most people who knew us were surprised it was me because he's usually the one with a beer.
Right.
I was more sneaky. So I don't think they saw me as much, the drinking that I was doing, but we laughed about that a little bit too. When I was the one that went off to Betty Ford, they were like, oh, really? And
I mean, we thought it's going to be him, not you.
Yeah. Because we were always having a party. We were always when we would have parties, all the giant bottles of alcohol were out on the island. It was all around the alcohol. And I see that now. I have friends that drink,
right.
And I go to parties like that. And it's, I watch television and I'll see a commercial and how romantic they make it look. I mean, it's disturbing to me, actually, because I saw this one, I think it was Crown Royal. This young man was picking up a bottle of Crown Royal and he was going over to have a drink with his mom. And I thought, okay, and then another one, the guy comes home and he goes to the roof and has a drink by himself. And I think, okay, now we're promoting drinking alone.
Right.
Okay, this isn't good.
Exactly.
This isn't good. This is exactly what is wrong right now.
Exactly.
Is the promotion of this alcohol. I mean, they make it look so tempting.
Right. Well, and that's what's hard is like for somebody to feel comfortable in their own skin, sober in environments where other people are drinking. That is a really difficult place for a lot of people to get to. And then they feel like they've conquered so much as they have, because it's really hard, right? I mean, early in my recovery, it was if you can't change the environment, remove yourself from it.
Right.
And for even till this day, I'll do the same thing. If I'm in an environment that seems a little dicey to me, or, ooh, I may not make the right choice here, I'm simply going to remove myself from it.
Yeah.
And learning that so early on was important because I didn't know. For so long, I'd be like, I'd get rid of that. I wish this person wasn't here. I wish they didn't bring that. I wish, and it's like, oh my gosh, you can't change anything anyone else is doing. You have to remove yourself. But people don't understand it until it gets to the point that it's that problem. And learning that you can go to all these social events and you don't need to have a drink in your hand. They've made that so normal, is that's what you do, you don't need to. Now, how has your husband been through your recovery? Is that something you guys decided to do together? Does he still occasionally drink, and are you okay with that? Or has he? Yes. Okay.
Yes, he does drink. And I always, and I think maybe looking back on it, it might be why it took me a little bit longer, is because I wanted to have the type of sobriety that I could go anywhere. And I wouldn't limit myself. I kept telling myself, you can do it. You can do it. And I would put myself in dicey situations. And sometimes it didn't work out well. But I had enough wherewithal that I didn't want him to change his life. I'd done enough damage. I felt like if, you aren't, your drinking is not my problem.
Right.
And
as
you don't have a problem.
As they'll turn around too as well and say, well, your drinking isn't my problem. This is your problem, not mine. Right. So I see it go both ways. And have you felt that was harder for the process because you felt you owed that to him? So you felt like you don't need to change anything about you. I'm the one that needs to suck it up and I need to be able to go through the discomfort. Do you feel if he joined you, even if it was the first 6 months or a year, it would have made the process a little easier?
No, I think that, I was going to drink no matter what.
Right.
I take full responsibility for that. And I think we both understood that, that even if he was to quit, I knew in my heart, if I was really honest with myself, I wasn't done yet, and it wasn't going to matter what he did. So I didn't really want him to go to these extreme lengths to try to change his life for me, because I really understood it was my journey to figure this out. And with, I didn't have a higher power. I didn't have any kind of grip on that. That was something I didn't want to participate in. I had been self-sufficient in my life and surviving, and I didn't feel like that was a component. And so once I had that, I felt like, okay, I can do this. And I just didn't want to be, I like people who drink. I like to go to parties where people are drinking. I leave early. Yeah. I always have a plan out. That's I don't usually stay past 10 o'clock. Yeah. 10 o'clock and I'm like, okay, bye. But I like it. I like it. I have sober friends. I have normie friends, and my husband is a normie, and I don't know. It is just the way it is, and we've managed to figure it out. But, there's alcohol in our refrigerator. Yeah. I look at it every day.
Which is good. To me, I feel that you have gotten to a level of comfort, and I've even told a lot of clients there's a difference between a need and a want. And if you are able to go to a restaurant and see a cocktail server walk by with, a tray full of drinks, if you're internally cringing inside, I really want that, but I can't have it. That's what we need to be able to work through, because there's a difference of, I simply just don't want that. It doesn't even faze me.
No.
That's a level of healing,
Yeah. I don't know that I ever, maybe there was a time when I would look at it and say, that would be nice, but I really do, recoil, as they say in the book, from it like a hot flame. It to me, it looks like poison. There's nothing about it that was good. Right. It was destroying my body from the minute it went in. Right. And I never thought I could feel this good or be this productive or be as confident in what the next steps are in life, and I want to keep repeating talking about the big book, but we intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. Right. That one is crazy to me, because I am faced with so many things that are challenging, raising teenagers and just life and business and those things I handle really well. It's what gets me, and I have to keep an eye on, are the little things like, thinking about why somebody's doing something. you know, or, you know, somebody said they were going to do something for me and they didn't do it, you know, ruminating over that. And then it's none of my business. You know, it's none of my business. But that gets me sometimes. Like if I'm not spiritually fit, I can tell that you know, if I have this rule, if 3 people in my day, by the third person, if the cashier at the register is pissing me off, it's me. You know, like people don't always behave appropriately, but how I react is the only thing I have control over.
Right.
So I need to be aware that if I'm constantly being upset by people throughout my day, I need to get to a meeting. Right. I need to call somebody. I need to change. I can hit the reset button right now and check.
And I feel the same way. You know, I am, and it's taken me, I'm still learning about myself. And I say that because I feel like it's okay to be able to say, you know, because for a long time, I used work as my recovery. I'm in it all the time. And that was a dangerous situation that could have tipped the other way. And I've seen that happen for a lot of professionals who work in this space, because we're dealing with crisis. We're dealing with people's, you know, darkest places and vulnerability. I mean, there's just so much, and it could take a huge toll if you don't have those personal boundaries or understanding of what your needs are. Yeah. And it was easy for me to get burnt out, frustrated, and I have accepted, and I'm glad to see that society is shifting a little bit when it comes to mental awareness, mental health, how to take care of that, what that looks like, and not put such a dark, negative bubble around it, that it actually could be a really shining, bright light. And if we take care of that, it could prevent a lot of, you know, bad paths and destruction. And I'm still trying to learn about myself, learn about, you know, when do I need to step away, take a breath, take a break. And I've gotten much better at it. But, you know, it's a challenge. And I feel like it's okay to always stay in tune. That's one thing we always have to remember. It's, you know, and it gets hard to say recovered or recovering. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, it's easy for me to say recovered a heroin or opiate addict because I haven't touched that in 12 years. But I also am very in tune with myself and taking care of myself of what I need to do, you know, to stay on top of feeling well and being able to face life as it comes, because there's been a lot of crappy things that have happened in these 12 years that could have easily routed me to cope in a negative way. And I didn't, you know, and that can be challenging too. Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard. What, do you have any sponsees? You do?
I do.
How long did it take for you to feel comfortable to be in that role for somebody else?
A long time. It was another turning point. There's several, but that are very, very poignant. And I think that's one of them, is that the sponsor that I have right now, and I've been with her for 5 years, she said to me the last time I was at with you, BFC. BFR. That's what I always confuse
Bright Future
the two.
Center.
No, because
that could work.
Betty Ford. Betty Ford. So when I actually went there, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same initials as Betty Ford, but it's not. It's
very similar.
Yeah. So she said to me, you know, the only thing that you haven't done, because, you know, I'm a good student. I'll go and do the work. Right. I'll finish the book. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. But I wasn't willing to do that because I really didn't think I had anything to give. Right. And she said, I want you to do it anyway. Raise your hand. And I was like, okay. And I got one right away. And she's still sober. She moved. She has a new sponsor where she's at, but she's doing great. She's getting married this year.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I have another one right now that I'm working with. We're on step 4. And I've had a couple that have just, you know, I don't know really what's happening with another one. And one of them just she's still sober, but she's not really working the program. So it has changed everything to be of service. And I shared with you when I came in today that I was feeling a little bit, you know, coming into the holidays and having the schedule that I did with my work, and just some trepidation about parties and people, and I did something different. I just stepped into the program, and I'm overcommitted now with the things that I do for the meetings I go to, but it's good. It's exactly where I need to be because it gets me out of myself. The minute I feel squirrely, I do something for somebody else. And I can stay in the book and I talk about, the steps on a daily basis because I'm working with other people. And, I have taken commitments before and then relapsed. And I didn't want to do that to a person.
Right.
I wasn't convinced enough that I was well enough to do that. It's the same with my kids. I didn't drink when I was pregnant. How did I do that?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I would have gotten pregnant later in my disease, if I would have been able to do it. But I was fortunate enough to be able to say, I don't want to harm this human and not drink. But right as soon as I had the baby, game on again. But there's something about being responsible for somebody else's life, that I just, but I'm so grateful that I did it. It changed everything. Yeah. Service and sponsorship to me are key in my recovery.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely key. Acceptance of my disease, having a bottom that I remember and that makes me cringe.
Yes.
Absolutely imperative to me. Those are things that I have now that I didn't have, and it took me a long time to get there.
Right.
Part of my husband being so supportive is that I had a safety net for so long. I wasn't destitute.
Right.
And I know how fortunate I am to be able to have gone to these places, but I also went to county facilities. I wasn't just in cushy places. I went to county and I was locked in there with people who were coming off the streets and given phenobarbital, and behind plexiglass. You couldn't talk to anybody unless they were behind plexiglass because the danger was real. A communal shower, a tweaker in my bed next to me, freaking me out, making me, I was on the phone when I had to wait in line for a payphone to make a call that I was being, harassed to get off after 2 minutes, like, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. It was scary. I wanted out and I was there for 10 days.
Yeah.
So I've seen the other side of it. I know how fortunate I am. On the other side of the coin though, I know from living in the area that I live in, I sometimes wonder, and I've had this discussion before, and it's different for everybody, but is it harder to get sober when you have resources? Because you can't, you don't really feel like your bottom is there.
Right.
Your bottom isn't there. Your bottom has to be something that is spiritually soul-sucking.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like that's where professionals really come into play.
Yeah.
Having Avila, the facility there, which is our more boutique style.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to see it from a visitor standpoint.
Yeah, right. But, and it's very true. That's a very valid point that I love that you bring up because there's so many times that I have a family member call and, money's not an issue. Right. And it's like they're willing to spend another $50,000, $60,000 out of pocket for their kid who's 22 years old, who's been to all these Malibu and high-end luxury programs. And I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I have space and I have availability. And sure, I could take your kid in, but I'm doing you all a disservice by doing that. Because what your kid needs is to go to a program that they can fend for themselves. They're not having mom and dad spending endless amounts of money to go back into a treatment facility. Yeah. It's not benefiting them. Now, then you have the client who has been to a lot of, state-funded programs, and maybe they could really benefit from the love and comfort of a private program. And maybe family will pull together to make that happen. It really just depends because that's a good question, right? Is it harder to get sober when you have endless resources? And I've seen it go both ways. I really think it's diving in to see what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked, and, bringing statistics in of what we as professionals have seen work for different dynamics of families and situations and substances as well. Somebody who's using alcohol and opiates are going to need two totally different things,
Well, I think that's really responsible of you as a facility, as a business, as a recovery coach, to be able to identify that and to say, like, maybe this isn't the best place. I mean, not a lot of places do that.
Oh, we do it all the time, too.
I see, coming from Malibu, I mean, it is the mecca of recovery. And I see a lot of irresponsible places crop up that just take your money.
Right.
You know, they just take your money, and then they don't really have your best interest. And I know firsthand from being at your facilities, it's a well-rounded program of what does this person need? What does this individual need?
Absolutely.
You know, and it was different. It was different for all of us. And you can identify that. And I think that's rare.
Yeah.
I think that's rare in this world of recovery, you know, because it's kind of like when people die and you go to the funeral home. You know, you have a very, very, what's the right word? Customer that they'll do whatever you tell them. You know, they're there. They want whatever it is you're going to do to help.
Right.
You know, they're willing to spend anything. So it's awesome that you're responsible like that. And I know that from firsthand experience that it's very catered.
Well, this is exactly the reason and my purpose and my entire team behind me and BFR is individuals like you. This is what I look forward to. I look forward to seeing the journey and, you know, everything that you're doing now, and recovery is possible. I mean, that's what we want to be able to spread, that message that no matter how many times you've fallen, no matter how many times you've slipped up and had to go back into a program, don't give up, because you're a testament of that.
That's the only thing I did right for the longest time was I didn't give up.
Yeah.
And I do believe that for me, I had to have my ego stripped. You know, I needed to fall down so many times so that I absolutely didn't care what you thought, and that I was humbled.
Right.
I came in with so much ego, unwilling to look at myself, you know, for all these reasons. And so each time I went out and came back with my tail between my legs, you know, justifying it, you know, with whatever. The last time I didn't have any left.
Right.
I had made so many mistakes and just was broken. And that's where I needed to go. And it's changed my whole life. I can't even imagine not having sobriety now and not having this, you know, kind of format for living, because it's the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and and my life is so joyful. I go to bed at night thinking, you know, I just wish morning would come. I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
You know, I've got so much to do. I'm so excited, you know, and that was never the case.
It's such a blessing, right?
You know, yeah, I cried myself to sleep as a child, and I passed out as an adult.
Right.
That's it. You know, and
how long do you have now?
I'll have 3 years. I'm not going to, no frontsies, but coming up on 3 years, February 26th.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, this is the longest sobriety I've ever had. And I used to get very upset when people would ask me, you know, like, how much time do you have? You know, how many days do you have? I'm like, you know what? I have today. Just like you.
For sure.
Because I was very defensive.
For sure.
But now I understand what a little bit of time means, because my head is clearer.
Right.
I'm able to really now. I think what's happening right now that's the most challenging for me is that I really am setting boundaries for the first time in my life. And I'm not that great at it.
Right.
You know, but I know what I need and what I don't need. I know myself well enough to know, like, there were a lot of things I didn't do this holiday season because I used to go to things just because I had FOMO, you know, and now I'm like, you know, that's not really where I want to go.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what I want to do.
I'm very
selfish with who I spend my time with and what I do. I'm a busy person now, but I have, you know, boundaries.
For sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's the best thing, right?
It is.
I feel the same way. And so I love the fact when I can just be like, sorry, I can't make it.
Yeah.
And it's nothing personal. It's just, I don't feel like going.
Right.
I feel like staying at home.
I need to stay home with my family.
And I don't feel bad anymore. I used to feel like I have to try to make it and I'd be exhausted, but I didn't want to be judged if I didn't show up.
How much time did you waste thinking about that?
All the time.
Oh, me too. Now I don't.
And talked about like, oh, she never comes, and oh, this. Well, sorry, simply I just don't want to. I wouldn't judge you if you didn't want to come because you simply were just too tired.
Yeah.
And that's a gift in itself to be able to do that today. And I love that. And I'm okay with those boundaries for myself, for my children, for my family,
And I'm teaching my kids, it's okay. You don't have to save people.
Right.
You don't have to give up your serenity for someone else's happiness.
Totally.
Like my daughter is a chip off the old block. She'll save anybody. Oh my gosh, but mom.
I know.
And I think that's not, does it work for you? Really, does it work for you? This is not being selfish.
Right. Agreed.
You will give up, you will end up, if you compromise too much, you will pay.
Yeah. Agreed. You have
whether it's your marriage or your children or your friends.
Yes.
You will pay.
Yes. As much as it's, we always say it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, that I have such a big heart for other people because I will put everyone else before myself, where it's like, I have to tell myself, no.
Yeah.
If you're not important enough to them to respect you, it's okay to just draw that line and that boundary and say, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I just quickly want to talk about your business because I love it.
Yeah.
I love your business so much. What inspired you to do that? Have you always been into fashion, and just through your recovery, you really, really pushed you to go ahead and go forward with it?
Yeah, I think, it's not that I've always loved fashion. I've never had enough money to have the things I wanted. Even as a child, my parents, we were middle class, and, there were other things that were more important. And so I remember not having things in my closet that I wanted to wear, and I would make do. And the first pair of Guess jeans that I had, purple with button fly, I remember them. I bought myself because I got a job. And I remember how that made me feel, to be able to put something on that I truly loved, and I just think that you don't have to spend a lot of money to look great.
Right.
You just have to know what your body type is, what looks good on you. And especially for women my age, they feel like, a lot of people, they feel like they just can't wear the trendy fashions anymore. And I don't think that's true at all.
Right.
And so I try to bring that. And when I like I said earlier, I felt like I was never living up to my potential. I didn't finish school. I want to share one other thing too, because interestingly enough, I had in my head, I just learned this from my mom the last time I was home. I've been going home quite frequently because my parents are both older and needing assistance in different ways. But I asked my mom, whatever happened to that coach? The coach that recruited me for swimming at Eastern Michigan University. I know that she got fired and another one came in. And I said, I don't remember exactly what happened. And she said, Karie, you didn't have the grades. And I thought, what? This was like a revelation. I had lied to myself from the time that happened to just this year. When I had this conversation with her about what really happened, that I didn't go to school. And I tried to piece it together to go to a different school. I ended up never finishing. And I just knew that I needed to be doing something that would bring me pride. And I saw other people doing it. And I thought, I want that. Yeah. I want that. How do I get that? And I also heard that if you do what you love, it's never, you're going to work harder than you ever have, but you're going to love it. Right. And I had the opportunity to help one of my friends down in Malibu do this very business, but it was hers and her husband's. Yeah. And I would never have started it down there because Malibu's small, 13,000 people, and it's very isolated too. So when we moved up here and I got the kids settled, even though I was still in my disease, I had in the back of my head that I had the opportunity in this concentrated area to do what I learned from her. And so I tested the market out, and it seemed like there was a market. People loved it. And so it just was one foot in front of the other. But the truck did not come along for the mobile part about it until after COVID and I was getting sober. No, because it was too much. It was too big, and now jumped so many hurdles getting that thing finished because I built it myself with a contractor, for twins construction. They allowed me to take the truck down to their shop and be there every day and work on it. And just because I had no plans, I had a sketch and that was it. And, it gave me the confidence that I can do anything.
Right.
Because I finished it. My God, it took me till I was 53 years old to finish something big. And my kids, I know they watched me do it. And I don't think that, that's probably, I've watched them, they fix cars themselves. They tackle things that I'm so proud of them, and I know that, as hard as my husband works, as hard as I work, we're healing. We're shifting this generation.
Yeah.
There's a shift. There's not going to be denial in our home. There's not going to be, they make mistakes all the time. We allow them to make mistakes.
Right.
I don't have the fear of life like I used to have. I was so afraid when I was in my disease of allowing them to do anything, and they lived very sheltered life, I think. But now they don't, they're allowed to be free and make their own mistakes. And that's how they learn.
Yeah.
But they also can, I think they can see that through my, imperfections, they can be imperfect and that they can strive and fail and get up and do it again. I've watched my son do it with his car so many times. He used to get so frustrated and he worries like I do. And he would make himself sick over things. And now that he's worked on a car, from 2 of them actually, I can see that he's just like, oh yeah, I'll get that fixed. I can do it. I mean, and he took the subframe off his car last week.
Wow.
And welded a new one on, and I mean, not little stuff.
Right.
And he's taught himself.
Right. That's the beautiful thing of recovery is that we've been able to, we have more patience with that.
Oh, so
and we've
much more
learned so much
patience.
that we're able to let our kids know it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. But what are we going to do? It's okay. You're upset, but let's find a solution or, keep going.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. Yeah. Beautiful. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I mean,
I'm so proud of you.
It's full circle. When I, saw you again, when I started doing shows out here in Hollister with Katie, and I said, I'm going to call you because your kindness and love towards me the last time I was at your facility was like nothing I've ever felt in my life. It was unconditional, in spite, and I will never forget it. I love you for it. And I'm so grateful that I was able to connect with you again. I called you. I was afraid.
Yeah.
Because it was a tough time.
Yeah.
And I said, this is what I'm doing and I'd love for you to meet these people. And now we're here.
I know.
And I think it's like, to me, this is just one more huge reason I stay sober is because there's people like you in my life that show me the way, show me the way. And it's a beautiful life. I'm so glad I didn't miss it.
Yeah. I'm proud of you and I love you. And I look forward to continuing our friendship.
Yes.
And you helping me with my closet.
Yes.
If people want to follow your journey and your amazing clothes and the amazing truck that you have created that I just love, my daughter loves, how do they find you?
I'm on Instagram at Design on Trend. I did bring my logo,
perfect.
So you can find it. This is what it looks like.
Love it.
And I have this big 26-foot truck that can dress you head to toe.
Yes.
And I will come directly to you. You can do private shopping or events.
Perfect.
And I'm available just about any time.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.